September 12th, 1943. A dusty road outside Salerno, Italy. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez crouched behind a crumbling stone wall, sweat streaming down his face as he adjusted the unfamiliar weight of the M1 Bazooka across his shoulder. 200 yards ahead, a massive German Tiger tank rumbled forward, its 88mm cannon swiveling menacingly toward his position. The 56-ton steel monster had already destroyed 3 American Sherman tanks in the past hour, leaving burning hulks scattered across the Italian countryside. Rodriguez had trained with the new rocket launcher for exactly 6 weeks back in Sicily. The instructors had been confident, almost cocky, about the weapon's capabilities. "This thing will punch through any German armor," they had promised. "Point, shoot, and watch the fireworks." Now, facing his first Tiger in combat, Rodriguez wasn't feeling quite so confident about the 2.36-inch rocket nestled in the tube beside his ear. What Rodriguez didn't know, what none of the American infantry advancing through Italy that autumn understood, was that they were carrying a weapon that would fundamentally change armored warfare forever. The M1 Bazooka represented a revolutionary leap in anti-tank technology, transforming ordinary foot soldiers into tank killers capable of stopping the most feared machines in the German arsenal. But the story of how this remarkable weapon caught the Wehrmacht completely off guard begins not in the dusty hills of Italy, but in the research laboratories of America, where brilliant minds were solving problems the Germans didn't even know existed. The genesis of American rocket technology dates back to 1918, when a young physics professor named Robert Goddard began experimenting with solid fuel rockets in his Massachusetts laboratory. While European armies were still thinking in terms of larger cannons and thicker armor, Goddard was envisioning a future in which small, portable rockets could deliver devastating firepower with pinpoint accuracy. Military officials dismissed his early experiments as science fiction, but a handful of forward-thinking officers recognized the potential. By 1940, as German panzers rolled across Europe, American ordnance specialists were frantically developing countermeasures to the growing threat of armored warfare. The problem was simple, yet seemingly impossible to solve. How do you give infantry soldiers the ability to destroy tanks without requiring massive, unwieldy weapons that would slow down advancing troops? Traditional anti-tank guns were effective but required teams of men to operate and were nearly impossible to conceal from enemy observation. The breakthrough came from an unlikely collaboration between Goddard's rocket research and the shaped charge experiments being conducted at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. Captain Edward Ohl and Colonel Leslie Skinner discovered that by combining a hollow charge warhead with a small rocket motor, they could create a weapon that was both portable and devastatingly effective against armored targets. The shaped charge principle, initially developed for mining operations, focused explosive energy into a narrow jet of superheated metal capable of penetrating steel armor far thicker than the explosive charge itself. The first prototype of what would become the Bazooka emerged in May 1942, just months after Pearl Harbor. The weapon consisted of a simple steel tube, 54 inches long and weighing just 13 pounds when loaded. The rocket itself was a marvel of engineering efficiency, packing a 3.5-pound warhead capable of penetrating 4 inches of steel armor into a projectile no larger than a coffee can. The electric firing mechanism was so simple that soldiers could master it in hours rather than weeks. American industrial capacity swung into high gear with characteristic efficiency. The General Electric Company's Bridgeport plant was retooled to produce bazookas at a rate that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. By late 1942, factories were churning out 5,000 launchers per month, along with 100,000 rockets. Each weapon required only 150 individual parts compared to the thousands needed for conventional anti-tank guns, allowing for mass production on a scale that German industry couldn't match. The weapon's simplicity was its greatest strength. Unlike the complex mechanical systems of German Panzerfausts or the temperamental early Soviet anti-tank rockets, the bazooka could function reliably in desert sand, tropical humidity, or Arctic cold. The two-man crew required minimal training, and the weapon could be broken down and reassembled in under 2 minutes. Most importantly, the Bazooka gave ordinary infantry squads the firepower to engage tanks on equal terms for the first time in military history. German intelligence remained completely unaware of the Bazooka's existence throughout 1942 and early 1943. Wehrmacht tactical manuals still assumed that Allied infantry posed minimal threat to armoured vehicles beyond close-range magnetic charges or Molotov cocktails. Panzer crews had grown accustomed to operating with virtual impunity against enemy foot soldiers, confident that their thick armour would protect them against anything short of dedicated anti-tank guns or aircraft. This complacency would prove catastrophic during the first encounters with American forces equipped with bazookas. German tank tactics emphasized aggressive forward movement and close infantry support, bringing their vehicles well within the 300-yard effective range of the new American weapon. Panzer commanders had no reason to suspect that individual enemy soldiers carried weapons capable of destroying their tanks from positions that seemed completely harmless. The psychological impact on German forces would prove as devastating as the physical damage. For 3 years of war, German tank crews had enjoyed overwhelming superiority over enemy infantry. The sudden appearance of portable anti-tank weapons that could disable or destroy their vehicles from concealed positions fundamentally altered the tactical equation. Veteran panzer crews who had fought across Poland, France and Russia found themselves facing a threat they had never encountered and didn't understand. The first combat deployment of bazookas came during Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa in November 1942. However, these initial encounters were against Vichy French forces and Italian units that posed minimal armoured threat. The real test would come when American infantry faced the legendary German Afrika Korps and their feared Tiger tanks in Tunisia during the spring of 1943. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez represented thousands of American soldiers who would soon discover whether months of training and industrial innovation could overcome years of German tactical superiority. The M1 Bazooka had performed flawlessly on firing ranges back home. Still, combat would reveal whether this revolutionary weapon could truly level the playing field between foot soldiers and the world's most advanced armoured vehicles. As Rodriguez steadied his aim at the approaching Tiger tank, he was about to participate in a moment that would reshape armoured warfare forever. The success or failure of his shot would determine not just his own survival, but the future of infantry anti-tank tactics for generations to come. The German crew inside that Tiger had no idea they were about to encounter a weapon that would force their high command to reconsider their approach to armoured operations completely. The stage was set for a confrontation that would demonstrate the power of American innovation and industrial might against German tactical expertise and battlefield experience. In the hills of Italy, the future of modern warfare was about to be decided by ordinary soldiers wielding extraordinary weapons. Rodriguez squeezed the trigger. The rocket erupted from the tube with a whoosh that sent a trail of smoke and flame streaming behind the projectile as it streaked toward the Tiger tank at 285 feet per second. The shaped charge warhead struck the tank's frontal armour with a sharp crack that echoed across the Italian hills. For a moment, nothing happened. Then smoke began pouring from the Tiger's engine compartment as the crew scrambled to evacuate their suddenly vulnerable fortress. The German tank commander, Obergefreiter Klaus Weber, had never seen anything like it. In 3 years of combat across North Africa and now Italy, enemy infantry had never posed a serious threat to his Tiger beyond suicidal close-range attacks with magnetic mines. Weber's combat report, discovered decades later in Wehrmacht archives, captured the shock of that first encounter. The American soldier was at least 200 meters away when he fired. No rifle grenade or anti-tank rifle could reach us at that distance. Yet something struck our tank with tremendous force, penetrating the engine deck and setting our fuel lines ablaze. What Weber and thousands of other German tank crews were experiencing was the culmination of American industrial ingenuity meeting battlefield necessity. The shaped charge technology that made the bazooka so devastatingly effective relied on the Monroe effect, a phenomenon discovered by American explosives expert Charles Monroe in 1888, but not weaponized until World War II. When the hollow charge warhead detonated, it created a jet of molten metal traveling at over 25,000 feet per second, hot enough to burn through steel armor like a blowtorch through butter. German metallurgists had focused on making their armor thicker and more complex, believing that brute strength would defeat any projectile. The Tiger tank's frontal armor measured 100 millimeters thick, capable of stopping the largest Allied tank guns at normal combat ranges. But shaped charges didn't rely on kinetic energy like conventional armor-piercing shells. They used chemical energy to create penetration that was largely independent of armor thickness. A 3.5-pound bazooka warhead could punch through armor that would stop a 17-pound tank shell. The rapid proliferation of bazookas throughout American infantry units caught German commanders completely unprepared. Wehrmacht intelligence estimates from early 1943 suggested the Americans possessed perhaps a few dozen experimental rocket launchers. The reality was far more alarming. By September 1943, every American infantry regiment in Italy carried over 200 bazookas, with trained two-man teams integrated into every rifle company. American production figures told the story of industrial mobilization that German planners had never imagined possible. The Bridgeport plant alone was producing 8,000 launchers monthly by summer 1943, while rocket production reached 2 million rounds per month across multiple facilities. Each bazooka cost $18 to manufacture compared to $37,000 for a Sherman tank, yet could disable German vehicles worth 10 times that amount. The economic mathematics of the weapon were as revolutionary as its tactical impact. German attempts to counter the bazooka threat revealed fundamental misunderstandings about American industrial capacity and tactical innovation. Wehrmacht engineers developed add-on armor kits and standoff screens designed to defeat shaped charge warheads. Still, these modifications were produced in tiny quantities, equipping only a fraction of German armored units. Meanwhile, American factories were already producing improved versions of the bazooka with more powerful warheads and greater penetration. The psychological warfare aspect of the bazooka proved as crucial as its physical destructive power. German tank crews who had operated with confidence for years suddenly found themselves vulnerable to attack from any concealed position within 300 yards. Every bush, every building, every pile of rubble could hide an American soldier with a weapon capable of destroying their tank. This constant threat forced German armoured units to operate with unprecedented caution, slowing their advance and reducing their effectiveness. Hauptmann Friedrich von Seckendorf, commanding a company of Panzer IVs in Italy, documented the dramatic change in German tactics forced by encounters with bazookas. We can no longer support infantry attacks as we did in Poland or France. The Americans hide their rocket teams everywhere. We lost 3 tanks yesterday to soldiers we never saw until they fired. Our crews are nervous, always watching for the telltale smoke trail that means death. The effectiveness of the bazooka against German armour varied dramatically depending on the angle of attack and the specific target. Tiger tanks remained formidable opponents when engaged from the front, but their side and rear armour proved vulnerable to well-placed rockets. American infantry quickly learned to coordinate attacks, with rifle squads suppressing German infantry, while bazooka teams manoeuvred for flanking shots against the massive tanks. The weapon's simplicity meant that training could be compressed into days rather than weeks. Private James Morrison, a farm boy from Iowa, who had never seen a tank before joining the army, became proficient with the bazooka in just 4 days of intensive training. His first combat engagement near Anzio destroyed a German Panzer IV from 150 yards, demonstrating how quickly ordinary soldiers could master this revolutionary technology. German countermeasures evolved rapidly as Wehrmacht engineers struggled to adapt to the bazooka threat. Zimmerit paste, a hard coating applied to tank surfaces, was designed to prevent magnetic mines from adhering but proved useless against rocket attacks. Schürzen, or armoured skirts, provided some protection against shaped charges, but added weight and complexity to vehicles already strained by combat operations. The most significant German response was their own rocket-propelled weapons. The Panzerschreck, essentially a reverse-engineered bazooka captured in Tunisia, entered production in late 1943. However, German manufacturing constraints meant that these weapons reached frontline units in limited numbers, while American production continued to accelerate exponentially. By winter 1943, the tactical revolution was complete. German armoured units that had once dominated European battlefields found themselves fighting defensively against American infantry, armed with weapons their doctrine had never anticipated. The psychological impact extended beyond individual tank crews, affecting German strategic planning as commanders realised that their armoured advantage was rapidly evaporating. The success of the bazooka in Italy set the stage for even more dramatic encounters in the battles to come. As American forces prepared for the invasion of France, they would carry with them thousands of these revolutionary weapons, each one representing a fundamental shift in the balance between infantry and armour that would reshape warfare forever. Rodriguez's successful shot that September morning in Italy marked more than just the destruction of a Tiger tank. It represented the moment when American industrial innovation permanently altered the mathematics of armoured warfare. Within months, the psychological advantage that German panzer crews had enjoyed since 1939 had evaporated, replaced by the constant fear of invisible infantry wielding portable destruction. The bazooka's impact extended far beyond its immediate tactical success. German armour doctrine, built on aggressive forward movement and close infantry cooperation, crumbled under the threat of concealed rocket teams. Panzer units that had once spearheaded breakthrough operations now advanced cautiously, their effectiveness hampered by the knowledge that any enemy soldier could carry tank-killing firepower. American production statistics told the story of inevitable transformation. By war's end, over 460,000 bazookas had rolled off assembly lines, accompanied by 15 million rockets. This avalanche of portable firepower democratized anti-tank warfare, giving ordinary foot soldiers capabilities that had previously required specialized equipment and extensive training. The weapon that caught German Tiger tanks off guard in 1943 became the template for modern infantry anti-tank systems still used today. From the hills of Italy to the beaches of Normandy, the simple steel tube that Rodriguez carried demonstrated how American ingenuity could transform the battlefield overnight, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary weapons come not from complexity, but from brilliant simplicity applied with overwhelming industrial force.